Is the government's policy, but I very much recognise people's concerns. What I would say is the numbers that you mentioned at this point are speculation because we haven't actually got them yet. That happens later on, but I do recognise people's concerns on this. I think they are completely legitimate and fair concerns to raise, and what I would say when we look at this properly at the appropriate time, that your word is the right word, fairness. That will be absolutely driving what we do, and we want to make sure that the decisions we make and the systems we have are fair, both for pensioners and for taxpayers.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And in this episode, we're going to take a look at the lying liars who live in number 10 and the lies they tell. This particular set of lies, of course, because there are so many, involves pensions. Back in 2010, as part of the coalition, the government announced that it was introducing a thing called the pension triple lock. This meant that pensioners who would receive the state pension would have an annual increase based on either average earnings increase, average inflation increase, or 2.5%. And it was always going to be the larger or largest rate would be the one applied to lift pensions up from one of the worst pensions in the world to still one of the worst pensions in the world, but slightly not as bad as it would otherwise have been. Then along comes the pandemic, and a lot of things changed. A lot of people worked from home. There's a lot of changing of jobs, etc. All sorts of things happened, and so the government saw fit to say, these are like difficult times, unusual, lies, bullshit, and decided that they would remove and scrap one section of the triple lock, that being average earnings, because average earnings increased about 8%. This caused a furore within the ranks of the Tory party. The rank and file members were against it, but the little Oompa Loompa that is the Chancellor, tiny Rishi Sunak, the littlest man in the planet, he decided that he wasn't going to pay any attention to that, and he cut this earnings link. So the pensions would only go up by inflation. Inflation at that point was 3.5%. So more than the 2.5%, fair enough, but not as high as the 8% that the earnings had gone up. He said it was a temporary measure, 1 year only, and it's going to come back this year. Fine. Meanwhile, inflation has jumped to what is currently about 6%, is likely to hit 7.5%, and with some leading economists saying they wouldn't be surprised if it hits 10%. Now, the world's tiniest man said that 8% earnings increase was too much, and we're going to have to break it. Now, he has to stay quiet, doesn't he? Because will he break a second promise and take the inflation rate out and only give them 2.5%? I think that would be the end of him. And I think it would be very damaging for the Tory party, because by far their biggest demographic voter is pensioners. And if you screw the pensioners over again, you'll pay for it. Now, there's a piece here which we're going to go in and have a look, all about and related to the pensions. But I will also raise another issue, semi-related. But we'll have a look at this. I'll put myself in my little corner and we'll have a look at this article. So, here's the article in the Express. State pension to hit 10,600 in biggest rise ever. Sunak in huge triple lock decision. Yeah, the decision is, we kill the Tory party or not. He's really going to be screwed. But it's not as though he can't afford it, but we'll come to that in a moment. The state pension is set to increase by almost £1,000 to 10,600 a year as inflation rockets, leaving Chancellor Rishi Sunak with a huge decision. Last Thursday, Bank of England policymakers admitted inflation is likely to be several percentage points higher than the 7.25% it had previously forecast. Price growth is already on course to hit 8% by June and could top 10% by autumn. This would put even more pressure on everybody's wallets, especially pensioners living on fixed incomes. The good news is that the state pension should rise in line with inflation next year under the triple lock mechanism, but we've already shown that the little tiny wanker is prepared to break that promise. So there's no reason why he won't break it again. But it's okay for him because he's a multi-millionaire, almost, I think, possibly even a billionaire. So he isn't going to feel the effects. The price of his second multi-million-pound yacht might go up a little bit. You feel sorry for him. Perhaps he should award MPs a massive pay rise. Oh no, they've just had one. Anyway, the good news is that the state pension should rise inflation. We've just done that one. So, introduced by the coalition government in 2010, as I mentioned a little while ago, the triple lock guarantees the state pension will rise by either 2.5% earnings or inflation, whichever is the highest. Unless he decides to break it again, because lying liars keep lying, can't help it. From April, the new state pension will pay a maximum of £185.50 a week, which works out £9,627 a year. A 10% inflationary uplift would increase that by an incredible £963 to £10,591. There is another potential piece of good news. The Bank of England reckons inflation will have fallen back by spring next year. If that is correct, a 10% state pension hike will increase it faster than prices. The problem there is he'll look at that falling inflation and go, oh, well, it's going to be falling inflation next year. We won't give you the full 10% because I'm a lying liar who lies. Fucking Pinocchio, honestly. Only it's a very short Pinocchio. If you looked upwards, you just see his nose popping up. Ooh, there it goes. But that's as far as it would get because he is only about 5'4". Dwarf. Anyway. What is it about tiny, tiny men and their tiny, tiny cocks? They get into position of power. Nobody under 5'8", I think, let's say, be fair. Nobody under 5'8", no man under 5'8", should ever be given authority because they would abuse it because of their tiny, tininess. Anyway, Department for Work and Pensions argues that earnings had been skewed and distorted by the pandemic and refused to pass it on. Yeah, so they're using that. Oh, it's not normal. It's not normal. We'll cancel it. Are they going to cancel this pension rise because of inflation being not normal? Yeah, it is normal. That is normal. Jesus, I grew up in the 70s and inflation was 25%. So go screw yourself, Rishi. Go screw yourself. Instead, pensioners will just get 3.1% next month. So a pay cut because inflation is already 6%. And they're giving them 3% rise. So that's effectively a 3% pay cut. Well done, wanker. Rising inflation is squeezing everybody right now, except billionaires like Rishi Sunak. But it could have a silver lining for the state pension. Sunak uses the September inflation figure to calculate the triple lock uplift when price growth could hit 8 or 10%. And this could put state pension on target for a bumper pay rise in 2023. Potentially the highest increase ever. And it would still mean the British state pension was shit. One of the worst in the developed world. But he can afford it. This would compensate for this year's disappointing increase, he added. While not helping to alleviate this year's pressures, it will at least offer a more generous increase in future. A significant increase in state pension will boost the income of state pensioners for generations to come. However, Cameron also warned that Sunak may be unable to resist tinkering with the triple lock mechanism again. Well, of course he will, because he's a lying wanker who cannot afford it, he will say. Bullshit. And we'll show you how he can afford it. Sunak's decision will be made easier if inflation has started falling back by the end of this year. Axing the triple lock again would infuriate millions of pensioners for a second time in 2 years. But Sunak is starting to act tough. He can only act tough because he's not tough. He's 5'4". I mean, seriously, elbow in the face, he's done. So he can act as tough as he likes. But you put him in a room with anyone who's not him, my 9-year-old niece would beat the crap out of him, Anyway, so he can act tough all he wants. He'll be out of a job soon because if he breaks that promise, he's gone. Yesterday, he fired a warning shot by saying he cannot solve every problem, particularly when grappling with global inflationary forces. And he has to do what is economically responsible. That's fine, no problem. Give him a 10% rise. It's economically responsible. Or do you want to condemn millions of pensioners to poverty because you want to act tough, you tiny, tiny shitbag? Anyway, so it's all down to this tiny dwarf and his inability to be a human being. And he's going to lie again because that's all he can do. He's a lying liar who lies. But can he afford it? Yeah, he can. Let's have a look at this. Boom. UK foreign aid. Money we're giving to countries abroad. Now, in 2019, we gave away £15.2 billion to foreigners who have contributed nothing to this country. This year, we're on target to give away £11 billion to foreigners who've contributed nothing to this country. Instead of wanking away billions on foreigners who've done nothing for this country, how about giving the pensioners a pay rise? How about making sure healthcare is improved, dentistry is improved, that there's more care for care homes or for vulnerable people, particularly vulnerable women, because obviously the government hates women at the moment, keeps trying to attack them. You know, all these rules that say women aren't allowed to do this or women aren't allowed to do that. Chest feeders in the NHS. And I've already done a video on the NHS, yesterday it was. If you go and have a look at that, it's how the NHS is putting men on women-only wards and lying to women. And then when the women themselves are raped by men on a woman-only ward, they're denying it. That's the NHS for you. Still feel like getting out and clapping them on a Thursday night? They have contempt for women. So, yeah, Rishi can afford it. There's 11 billion. I've just found 11 billion, Rishi. Not a problem. You can afford it. Give the pensioners their rise. Don't break your promises, you lying liar. Anyway, I shall come up and we shall round this video off. Yeah, so there you are. Will the little shit renege on his promises yet again? There's no reason why he won't. He'll tinker with this, he'll finagle the figures, he'll outright lie because he can't help himself. He'll screw the pensioners. And they will not get any kind of rise that they will need to maintain dignity, any kind of standard of living, or even pay the bills. Because while this horrible little shit is screwing over the pensioners, things like electricity prices are going through the roof, gas prices are up. Try filling your car. It's nearly £2 a litre. I mean, Jesus, I don't know how pensioners can run a car on what they're getting. £2 a litre, of which most of that is going back to the government. And we've seen how the foreign aid budget is through the roof. And the worst of it is, they're still contracted to pay the EU pensions for 25 years. Billions upon billions of pounds are going into an organisation we're not part of. How about going, screw that, we'll use that to give our pensioners an uplift. But he won't do that because he can act tough, but he's a horrible little squirt. He's got really no spine, because he can act tough against old people, but he can't act tough against normal, grown-up adults who've got legitimate points of view. No. Screw the pensioners, yeah. Little old people, they can't fight back. Yeah, what a cowardly little shit he is. And we should make it clearly known, if he fucks the pensioners, the Tory party's finished. And it's down to him. He holds the very future of the Tory party in his tiny, tiny, childlike hands. And if he does screw the pensioners, then he's done, and the Tory party's done, because the pensioners won't vote for them. And that's them out. They're already under pressure because of everything that's happened, especially with that bumbling buffoon Boris in charge. Where are they going? They've actually got a man who is... He must hate people. I actually think he's a psychopath. I think he actually hates people. And he comes up with all this, oh, we've got to do the right thing. Do the right thing, Rishi. Give the frickin' pensioners a pay rise. You horrible little shit. Anyway, I could get very, very angry. I just hate that horrible little man and his complete disregard for human dignity. So I hope he loses his job. I hope we get someone in who's actually got a spine, who can say, actually, we'll cut the foreign aid budget and we'll use that to give the pension rise and get the pension up to something approaching a living wage. Because that's the thing. If I was an employer and offered to pay someone that amount of money to live on as a salary, I'd be breaking the law. So how about you give the pensioners minimum wage? Pay them 40 hours a week at minimum wage. Won't do that though, will you, Rishi? Anyway, I'll leave it there. We'll move on. I will simply close off and say that if you like what you hear on this channel, please subscribe if you haven't already. Ring the bell for notifications for future content. Leave a like, leave a comment. We read and answer them all. And until next time, keep safe, keep well, and goodbye.